A younger sibling with type 1 diabetes endures years of medical gaslighting and sabotage from her older sister, Jade, whose jealousy morphs into a pathological need for attention. After Jade is exposed for faking hypoglycemic episodes, she escalates to a life-threatening act, destroying and withholding insulin during a holiday morning, coercing a filmed confession. A vigilant neighbor intervenes, paramedics arrive, and Jade faces legal consequences. The narrator survives, and the family begins a painful recovery process: legal action, safety planning, and rebuilding trust. The first thing you hear is the hum of the refrigerator. The second is the click of the disposal switch. Cold morning light lays a thin stripe across the kitchen tiles. She stands over the sink with my vials gathered in one hand like marbles. The disposal yawns open, steel teeth waiting. Her wrist doesn't shake. Mine does. The pump on my hip is already chirping low reservoir, except I changed it last night. I know what that means. She's emptied it in the dark. Say it, Jade says. Her voice is gentle the way a lid is gentle before it seals the jar. Say you taught me to fake it. The house is quiet because our parents are chasing doorbuster televisions, because holidays turn good people into shoppers and kitchens into battlegrounds. Steam scrims the window. I can see our neighbor's porch across the yard, a small square of world where pie tins cool and a ceramic cardinal sits guard. The ordinary is so bright it hurts. When I was 10, I learned what an empty insulin pen looks like at 55 miles per hour. I learned what vomit tastes like at the intersection of County Road 7 and the universe. I learned you can hear your mother crying over the sound of an ambulance. Jade learned other things: how attention works, the physics of a room turning toward you when you gasp just right. Back then, she made a ritual of my disease, counting my carbs out loud, snapping at me for not thanking her when she handed me a juice box, sighing dramatically the morning my fingers bruised from too many lancets. A year later, she borrowed my meter and returned it with numbers that didn't belong to me. At dinner, she told our parents the meter was confused, that her body was fickle. I watched my mother's face fold like a map. I watched my father reach for his keys. Now Jade tips the vials, and they clink a little, a tidy chorus. One truth, she says, and this ends. She has always loved bargains with unpriced tags. The air smells like metal and dish soap. My mouth is dry enough to splinter. The first wave of thirst isn't dramatic, it's administrative, a memo sent from blood to brain that reads, "We're short. Handle it." You're not going to die, she says, as if she's rehearsed it. You'll get sick, and then I'll save you, and then you'll do your lines when it counts. There's a knife on the counter. There's a phone across the room. There's a window that looks bigger than it is. When I picture opening it, the glass buckles like water. When I picture running, the hallway tilts and lengthens like a bad dream. I don't answer. The disposal growls once, a promise. Jade smiles, the way people smile when a coin lands exactly as they called it. See, she says, and drops the first vial. The sound the glass makes is not a shatter. It's a grind, a soft scream of usefulness ending. I taste adrenaline like pennies. Somewhere outside, a newspaper lands. Inside, the hum of the refrigerator keeps on like a metronome no one can stop. Good morning, Jade says, as if we've just started. By noon, you can chart a day by its rituals. By 8:12 a.m., you can chart a crisis by its omissions. No beep from my meter, because it's not in my pocket. No clink of my pump's cartridge in the trash, because she emptied it elsewhere. No footsteps from our parents, because they left before dawn with thermoses and a list. Jade leans her hip against the counter like a teacher. She's dressed for errands she'll never run, clean sweater, hair braided as if discipline could be borrowed. The knife gleams beside her, not brandished, just present. Control doesn't always shout. Sometimes it sets props and waits. Let's get ahead of it, she says, and slides her phone between us, camera open. I'll help you. We'll practice the beats. In the reflection, my face is a little too bright at the edges. I look like someone who's been awake for 3 days and hasn't told anyone. I know this phase. Before the acidosis announces itself, there is the paperwork of thirst, the small negotiations, one breath traded for another. My breaths are getting louder. Jade sees it and misnames it as fear. She speaks in bullet points. You taught me what to say. We planned episodes around your schedule. The group chats? You wrote those. The candy? Treatment. The inconsistencies? Stress. She looks satisfied with the architecture of the lie, like a builder admiring scaffolding. We'll keep it simple. People like simple. I try to swallow and it feels like chewing glass. Somewhere under the cabinet, a pen cap rests, blue plastic bright against dust. It becomes, for a moment, the only color in the room. Water, she asks brightly, a kindness used like a tool. She pours from the tap and drinks in front of me. The sound is cinematic and cruel. When she finally slides the glass over, it's warm from her hand and gone in 2 swallows. The relief is a magic trick, the kind where the rabbit appears and disappears in the same breath. Again, she says, hitting record. Tell me why. My voice comes out like a radio between stations. I wanted someone to. The sentence misses its turn and goes off-road. Jade stops, rewinds, frowns. We need usable footage. Outside, a mailbox flag lifts. Across the wall, the kitchen clock conducts time, 8:23. 24. The numbers grow teeth. I look at the window and she catches the glance in the air, grabbing the knife and laying it tenderly across her palm. I won't hurt you, she says, and I believe her. She doesn't want blood. She wants a performance. But I will end this if you try to leave. The nausea arrives quietly, then unfolds like a storm. I bend and dry heave, and Jade narrates in a soft voice for the camera as if she's hosting a nature program. Rapid breathing. Gastric distress. Early confusion. She knows the words, but not the cost to earn them. When it passes, I sit. The tile holds my fever like a secret. From this angle, the underside of the cabinets is a coastline of crumbs and forgotten magnets. The room swims. Jade crouches so we're face to face, the vials reflected whole in her eyes. You think you're better because you're the sick one, she says, almost lovingly. You think illness is virtue. But it's just proximity to concern. I stood 5 years away from it and learned how to make it look back at me. I'm too tired to argue. I watch her thumb brush a label. 10 milliliters. U, 100. Letters that ordinarily look like safety. Today they look like leverage. The doorbell rings. A sound so ordinary it cracks the scene like a stage light exploding. Jade stands, smoothing her sweater until it lies perfectly flat. Don't, she says softly as if training a dog. She goes to the door, voice bright. Happy holidays. I push my palm against the tile and feel the grit. I aim myself toward the living room and the phone, a slow crawl measured in tiles. I make it 3 squares before her hand closes on my ankle and pulls me back to the beginning. There is a point where the air thickens. Your chest hikes like it's climbing stairs it can't see. Breath grows edges. Then the world tilts, just enough to throw you off your feet even when you're sitting down. When Jade drags me, my hip hits the kickboard and a sound leaves me that doesn't feel like mine. She flinches, then collects herself, resetting the scene. On the counter, she lines the vials like saints in a niche. Names them with the private language of old grudges. This one for the trip. This one for the night she woke them. This one for every time they said your name before mine. The disposal purrs under her hand. The first vial is already gone, ground into useless glitter. The second hovers. She watches my face as it falls. The grind is slower this time. Maybe my perception has stretched. Maybe everything takes longer when you're running out of sugar to think with. Not enough, she decides. Phone back in its place. New tactic. Write it. She thrusts a notepad and pen at me, a confession already drafted in her tidy, schoolgirl script. Copy. My fingers don't understand pens anymore. The letters I make are strangers to the page, brief, uncertain. She snatches the pen, frustrated not at my pain but at the waste of good stationery, and then, in the same motion, gathers a syringe, cracks a vial, draws up something small. Her face is calm, almost maternal. Just a taste, she murmurs. We need you lucid. The needle kisses skin. Cold threads through my arm like frost climbing glass. Not enough to fix it. Enough to sharpen the outline of the room, Bring the knives and the clock and the camera into cruel focus. Enough to let me see clearly the tremor in her own breath. Control, it turns out, has a pulse. The doorbell again. Her name, floating in from the porch, Jade? Honey? Our neighbor's voice carries fresh bread and old stories. It doesn't ask. It assumes the right to enter a narrative and soften it at the corners. Jade freezes, running possibilities in a magician's spread behind her eyes. She tucks the syringe aside. Puts the knife in plain view, not as a weapon but as punctuation. Opens the door half an inch, bright and false. We're fine. Just lazy today. Let me see her, Mrs. Buffort says. The voice changes then, losing sugar, finding steel. The kind old women keep in the pantry for storms. I knock a glass from the counter. It breaks in a broad, declarative way that makes honesty suddenly more likely. I don't say a word. I widen my eyes just enough that someone who has watched me since I was 5 could read the text. I'm calling 911, she says through the door, voice inexorable as weather, unless you open this. Jade returns, panic rising like water under a door. She looks smaller, younger, as if the costume is shrinking on her. She lifts a vial for show, like a priest raising a sacrament. One chance, she whispers in my ear, breath hot. Make her go away. The syringe she stashed glints under the cabinet where she knocked it earlier. 2 units, maybe 3. It becomes a plan. I let her haul me up. The hallway spins. At the door, Mrs. Bufort's eyes go right past Jade's words and find my breathing. She sees the color. The sticking lips. The way my hand reaches unconsciously for a meter I don't have. In her face, I watch understanding snap into place like a seatbelt. I'll fetch that tea, she says too loudly, and call your mother. Which is code. Which is alarm. Which is rescue dressed as routine. Jade slams the door. The room seems to tilt toward the disposal. Outside, footsteps hurry. Inside, a siren begins somewhere far away, and the room inhales to listen. Thunder is far off sirens when you're inside. You can convince yourself they're not for you until they are. Jade hears it, calculates down to the last contingency. She is a hive of options, each one racing, stinging. The kitchen shrinks to a theater under harsh light. Props everywhere. The vials, the phone, the knife, the cracked glass, the paper with my faltering handwriting. Evidence arranged itself while she monologued. Now it waits for an audience. Look at me, she says, trying to lower my eyes to her authority. We can still fix this. We make a scene about you losing your temper, breaking your own supply. I forgive you. I help you. That's the story. That's the only way we survive. She means she survives. The pronoun is plural only on paper. Her pupils are 2 pinprick windows. Behind them, terror. It is almost compassion I feel, but compassion is a resource and mine is low. The insulin she gave me buys me maybe 20 minutes of thought, not strength. The world is crisp but heavy. My head throbs with the mathematics of bodies, ketones versus fluids, time versus distance, breaths versus acid. The clock's hand crawls and leaps. Siren closer now, 1 block? 2? Listen, I say, and the word is gravel. If I die, you go to prison. It comes out without ornament. Just fact, set on the table beside the knife. She knows. Of course she knows. But knowing and accepting are not synonyms. Jade's gaze flicks to the door, to the window, to the vials. She's a pinball struck too hard, ricocheting between choices. She reaches for the first language she learned, destruction. 1 vial. Then another. She drops them like coins in a wishing well and wishes me gone, wishes time back, wishes herself into a version of the story where she mattered without harm. The disposal shudders and eats, patient, obliging. I feel the floor through my palms and anchor myself to the ordinary, wood grain, a smear of jam, the coolness where tile meets baseboard. I am here. I am not a performance. I am not an object lesson. There's a sound upstairs, my phone, my mother's ringtone, a tune from a gentler era. It stops. The siren resolves into separate notes, 2 vehicles, maybe 3. Tires on gravel. Doors. Voices. The house we are inside of is about to have more people in it than Jade has planned for. She looks at me and misreads my stillness as surrender. She mistakes calm for weakness, the way she once mistook mimicry for medicine. She grips the last vial, the way a drowning person clutches their own shadow. "If I can't win," she says, and her voice goes small as a child's bedtime, "nobody does."